1968, Glasgow, Scotland. A young woman's body is found in a lane behind her tenement building. Her name is Patricia Docker. She is 25 years old, a nurse, a mother of a young son. She had gone out the night before to a dance at the Barrowland Ballroom, a popular venue in the east end of Glasgow. She never made it home. She was strangled. Her body was left in a doorway, partially undressed. There were no witnesses, no suspects. The case went cold within weeks. 18 months later, another body. October 1969. Jemima McDonald, 32 years old, a mother of 3. She had also been at the Barrowland Ballroom. She was found strangled, her body left in a derelict building. The similarities were noted. 2 women, both at the Barrowland, both strangled. Police began to see a pattern. Then, in October 1969, just weeks after Jemima's death, another woman was killed. Helen Puttock, 29 years old, a mother of 2. She had been at the Barrowland Ballroom with her sister, Jean. They met 2 men. One stayed with Jean. The other left with Helen. Hours later, Helen was found dead, strangled. Her body left in a quiet street in Scotstown. But this time, there was a witness. Jean had seen the man, spoken to him, remembered details, and what she remembered would create one of Scotland's most enduring mysteries. This is the story of Bible John, a serial killer who targeted women in Glasgow in the late 1960s. A man who met his victims at the Barrowland Ballroom, charmed them, danced with them, and then killed them. A man who quoted the Bible, who spoke of sin, who seemed religious, controlled. A man who was never caught, never identified, and whose crimes, more than 50 years later, remain unsolved. Patricia Docker was the first known victim. She was a nurse at Mernskirk Hospital. She was separated from her husband on the night of February 22nd, 1968. She left her son with relatives and went to the Barrowland Ballroom. It was a Thursday night. The ballroom was crowded, lively. Patricia was seen dancing, talking, enjoying herself. She left around midnight. She was found the next morning, strangled, her handbag missing. Police investigated. They interviewed people at the ballroom, but no one remembered seeing her leave with anyone. The case went cold. 18 months passed. On August 15th, 1969, Jemima McDonald went to the Barrowland Ballroom. She was a mother of 3, separated from her husband. She loved to dance. She left home that evening, telling her sister she would be back late. She was last seen leaving the ballroom with a tall, well-dressed man. Her body was found the next day in a derelict building near Bridgeton, not far from the ballroom. She had been strangled. Her handbag was missing. Police noted the similarities to Patricia Docker's case. Both women, both at the Barrowland, both strangled, both with handbags missing. A pattern was forming. Then, on October 30th, 1969, just 10 weeks later, Helen Puttock and her sister Jean went to the Barrowland Ballroom. It was a busy night. The sisters met 2 men on the dance floor. Both were well-dressed, polite. One was called John. The other gave no name. Jean danced with the unnamed man. Helen danced with John. At the end of the night, Jean's companion left quickly, saying he had to catch a bus. John offered to share a taxi with the sisters. They accepted that I am the taxi. John sat between Helen and Jean. He talked. He spoke about the Bible. He quoted scripture. He mentioned he did not drink, did not approve of married women going to dances without their husbands. He said his father had been strict religious. He seemed intense, moralistic. Jean found him strange, but Helen seemed comfortable. The taxi dropped Jean off first. Then it continued with John and Helen. That was the last time Jean saw her sister alive. That Helen's body was found the next morning in a back lane in Scotstown. She had been strangled. Her handbag was missing. Her clothes were torn. She had been killed shortly after leaving the taxi. Police interviewed Jean immediately. She described the man in detail. Tall, around 6 feet, slim build, reddish-brown hair, neatly styled, well-dressed in a dark suit. Age between 25 and 30. Soft-spoken, polite, religious. He had mentioned his name was John. He had quoted the Bible. The press latched onto this detail. They called him Bible John. A massive investigation was launched. Police created a composite sketch based on Jean's description. The image showed a handsome, clean-cut young man with styled hair, a neat suit. The sketch was distributed across Scotland, across the UK. Posters were placed in shops, in pubs, on buses. The public was asked to help. Tips poured in. Hundreds of tips. Men who resembled the sketch. Men who quoted the Bible. Men who had been at the Barrowland. But none of the leads went anywhere. The Barrowland Ballroom became the focus. Police interviewed staff, regular attendees, anyone who had been there on the nights the victims disappeared. They set up surveillance. Undercover officers attended dances, watching, looking for anyone suspicious. But Bible John, if he had been there, did not return. The killing stopped. After Helen Puttock's death in October 1969, there were no more murders. The pattern ended. The killer vanished. For decades, the case remained open but cold. Suspects were investigated. Men were questioned. DNA was tested, but no definitive match was ever found. The most prominent suspect was a man named John McInnes. He was a former Scottish soldier who had lived in Glasgow in the late 1960s. He fit the physical description. He had a religious upbringing. He had frequented the Barrowland Ballroom, but he died in 1980 before DNA technology could test him conclusively. In 1996, his body was exhumed. DNA samples were taken, but the results were inconclusive. Some investigators believed he was Bible John. Others disagreed. The debate continued. In the 2000s, advances in DNA technology offered new hope. Evidence from Helen Puttock's clothing was re-examined. DNA profiles were created, but the samples were degraded, contaminated. No clear match could be made. Investigators tried genealogy databases, the same methods that had solved other cold cases, but the DNA was too poor quality. The search stalled. Other suspects emerged over the years. Men who had been in Glasgow in the 1960s. Men who resembled the sketch. Men who had criminal records, violent pasts. Each was investigated. Each was cleared or dismissed. The case remained unsolved. The question persisted. Why did the killing stop? Serial killers rarely stop on their own. They are caught. They die. They are imprisoned for other crimes. Or they move and continue elsewhere. Did Bible John die shortly after Helen's murder? Was he imprisoned? Did he leave Scotland? Or did he simply stop, satisfied or afraid of being caught? Some investigators believe Bible John killed more than 3 women. They point to other unsolved murders in Glasgow in the late 1960s and early 1970s. Women found strangled. Women who had been out dancing. But the connections are tenuous. The evidence is unclear. Officially, Bible John is linked to 3 murders. Patricia Docker, Jemima McDonald, Helen Puttock. 3 women, 3 mothers. 3 lives ended after a night of dancing. The Barrowland Ballroom closed in the 1980s. It reopened later, but it is no longer the same. The dances, the crowds, the energy of the 1960s are gone, but the memory remains. Older Glaswegians remember. They remember the fear, the warnings. Do not go to the Barrowland alone. Do not accept rides from strangers. Be careful. The fear was real, and it lingered long after the murders stopped. Jean Puttock, Helen's sister, lived with the memory for the rest of her life. She was the last person to see Helen alive, aside from the killer. She spoke to him, sat beside him, heard his voice. She gave the description that created the legend of Bible John, but she could never identify him. She died in 2010, never knowing who killed her sister. The families of the victims have waited decades for answers, for justice, for closure. Patricia Docker's son grew up without his mother. Jemima McDonald's children lost their mother. Helen Puttock's children were left without answers. The pain, the absence, never faded. And the killer, whoever he was never held accountable. The case of Bible John has become part of Scottish folklore. A boogeyman, a mystery that has never been solved. He is mentioned in books, in documentaries, in true crime podcasts. His composite sketch is one of the most recognizable images in British crime history. But behind the legend are 3 real women, 3 real families, 3 unsolved murders. Investigators have not given up. The case remains open. DNA samples are stored. Technology improves. Genealogy databases grow. There's hope, even now, that a match will be found, that a name will emerge, that Bible John will be identified. But time is running out. The killer, if alive, would be in his 80s. More likely, he is dead. The window for justice is closing. The question remains, who was Bible John? Was he a local man, someone from Glasgow, who blended into the community? Was he a traveler, passing through, who left after the killings? Was he a soldier, stationed nearby, who was transferred? Was he a religious fanatic, driven by twisted morality? Or was he simply a man who enjoyed killing, who used religion as a mask, a way to appear normal, controlled? The Bible references are puzzling. He quoted scripture in the taxi with Jean and Helen. He spoke of sin, of morality, of judgment. Was this genuine belief or performance? Was he trying to justify his actions to himself? Or was he manipulating, charming, using religion to gain trust? The answers died with him, or remained locked in his silence. The Barrowland Ballroom, in its time, was a place of joy, music, dancing, community. People went there to escape, to have fun, to meet others. And for 3 women, it became the last place they were seen alive. The ballroom, once full of life, became associated with death. The legend of Bible John overshadowed everything else. Glasgow has changed. The East End has been redeveloped. The streets where the bodies were found have been rebuilt. The city has moved on, but the memory remains, in police files, in archives, in the minds of those who lived through it, in the families who still wait. The story of Bible John does not end here, because it has not ended. The case is still open. Investigators still review evidence. DNA is still tested. Genealogy searches continue. Tips still come in, though less frequently now. And somewhere, perhaps, an answer waits. A name, a connection, a breakthrough. But for now, Bible John remains unknown. A man who danced with women at the Barrowland Ballroom, who quoted the Bible, who seemed polite, religious, controlled, and who strangled 3 women and disappeared. His face, captured in a composite sketch, is familiar to millions, but his name, his identity, his fate remain a mystery. Patricia Docker, Jemima McDonald, Helen Puttock, 3 women, 3 mothers, 3 lives cut short. They deserve to be remembered, not as victims of a legend, but as people, with families, with lives, with futures that were stolen. The search for Bible John continues. Quiet, patient, unresolved. The case is cold, but is not closed. And the hope, faint but enduring, remains. That someday, the mystery will be solved. That the man in the sketch will have a name. That justice, delayed for more than 50 years, will finally come. Glasgow remembers. The families remember. And somewhere, in the shadows of history, Bible John remains. A ghost, a mystery, a killer who was never caught. And the silence, after all these years, is deafening.